Ooh, that looks tasty. Welcome folks, Today the Hungry Gamer is back with another mini preview, and today we're talking about Shadow and Rune, a tactical deck building game. And what this game is this is a combination of deck building meets Magic the Gathering with a little bit of tactical spatial combat mixed in. And what I mean by that is you have your basic deck building game, and you will have a market of different cards that you can purchase. And to purchase those cards, you'll be using coin cards of different values that are in your hand. And when those cards come up, you can use them to buy something and put it in your discard pile. However, at the same time, you also have a variety of creatures that you're going to be using and summoning. Once you've bought them and they're in your deck, when you draw them again, you can use some of your actions to play them. And basically, you're going to have 3 actions per turn, though there's ways to get more with different cards and things like that. And then each different card will have a different number of actions you need to put it on the board. However, you can also use actions to have your cards move around the board, and then at the end of each round, after you've made your purchases, all your different cards will have the option to attack. And each card will have a different amount of health and a different attack pattern and different damage and different abilities, all kinds of stuff. And you will either beat the crap out of the other player's enemies. If you defeat one, it goes into their discard pile, not out of the game, or you will attack the player directly, and the first player that takes 30 damage is going to lose the game. And that's the game. Now, that said, there is also a solo co-op mode. However, I have not gotten to experience that as I'm just on a time crunch right now, and the designer preferred that I talk about the competitive mode. And so here we are. Now, with that very, very fast breakdown, what do I like about this game? The first thing is, it's clearly a very simple game because I feel like I gave you the bulk of what you need to know about how to play in about 90 seconds or so. The complexity from the game is going to come with the different cards and what the different cards do, and there is a good big variety of cards, of creatures you can summon, and little bonuses that you can use, and things of that nature. Next thing I'll say is, I really like the art. It's, I don't know what you call it, it's not pencil, it's like ink, or I don't know what you would call it, but I do like the art. I think all the different cards, they look really good, and it does have a nice clean aesthetic with this kind of just black and white board. I do know that everything that you saw earlier with the footage that I had going, that's all prototype materials, and the color, the ink or whatever is going to be a little bit different, and it'll be a little bit clearer to see. But anyhow, I like the art. I think it looks really good on the table. The next thing I'll say is it has a cool combination, as I mentioned, of Magic the Gathering and deck building. Two things that I did not think would work well together at first, but the more I think about it, you think about playing Magic the Gathering, you have to put your lands out there and using your lands to summon things. Well, instead of that, you're using coin cards to hire different minions and stuff to do things for you. So it actually does work pretty well, and thematically it works well too. Kind of this idea to me that you're hiring mercenaries, and then you have to use some of your actions to kind of put them out on the board, to give them their orders to kind of do things. And so actually I think it works pretty well, and it does feel decently fresh. The next thing I'll say is there's a great variety of different cards that you're going to be able to summon. There's a lot of different stuff, and depending on how you mix them out there on the board in a given game, it's going to change the way the game is played at any given time, and I really do appreciate that. However, unlike with Magic the Gathering, how some players simply going to have a better deck because they have better cards, you're going to be doing everything from the board. So if you have a better deck, it's because you played better in that moment, and I really do like the way that works. Next thing I'll say is, it plays fast. Even though you have 30 health, which seems like a lot, it plays really fast. I actually learned this game and played an entire game on Tabletop Simulator, which if you are familiar with it, you know it adds at least 20% time to any given play in an hour, maybe less. So it's a very, very quick game to play. Easily get down there. You can easily put it on the table and do a quick 2 out of 3, no problem. Next thing I'll say is, though I have not played the game extensively, it does seem like it doesn't really have a runaway leader problem. Yes, there's times when you feel like you're getting beaten on, but you can almost always get a pretty solid comeback, and all the games that I've played have been decently close, within 5 health points or so. So to me, that's a pretty good balance. I suspect as people play more and more, that might skew a little bit, because I suspect there is some serious skill to this game, but from my kind of initial plays, it seems like the balance is really good. And then the last thing I'll say is, One of the things I often say about deck builders is I don't like buying cards to buy more cards only. It's just not something that I enjoy in deck builders. And I still don't love that. It's still not something that's my favorite, but I will say in this particular game, it works pretty well because you're just constantly just using it. You're getting a card right now, and that card's going to be able to go back out onto the board fairly quickly. And I think because the game is so quick and the mechanic for buying the creatures feels kind of thematic, it works all right for me. And of course, that is a me thing, and this is obviously taking me into one of my quibbles with the game. The first thing is you're still using cards to buy more cards. There is that, though, as I said, to me, it works better in this game than it does in many others. Next thing I'll say is you're very clearly at the mercy of your draws. There are definitely times when you're going to draw a bunch of coins, but just not quite enough to buy something big and cool, and so you can either buy more coins, or you can just buy something that's not quite what you wanted. And along with that, the next thing is you're kind of buying creatures twice. You're buying them once with your coins, your money, and you're going to have to buy them again with your actions to put them out on the board. And on the flip side of that, it does mean you got to be careful with how you're using these creatures, but because you may have just wasted a bunch of actions, you get them out there, they get killed, but you do have to kind of buy them twice. When you combine that with sometimes your draws just are subpar, sometimes it can be a little bit frustrating. Next thing I'm going to say is, I do wonder if you're not going to feel like you need to get more and more card packs. This is not a trading card game, so I suspect down the road they'll just be expansions. But I do wonder if you're not going to feel the need to keep buying more and more of these to kind of keep that variety. Because though there's a good variety in the creatures, they are all relatively simple. And the last thing I want to say is, I haven't played the solo co-op, so I don't know how strong that element of the gameplay is. But there you have it, folks. That is Shadow and Rune. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised by this. I agreed to cover it just because I loved the way it looked. And even though I do tend to have reservations with kind of Magic the Gathering style, just beat 'em up games, it's not my favorite. And I tend not to like deck building in general, especially when you're buying cards, buy more cards. Despite those things, I still quite enjoyed this. So I think for someone that likes those two genres far more than I do, I think you're really going to enjoy this one. So there you have it, folks. That is Shadow and Rune. As always, if you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share, maybe become a channel member. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.